Hi all. I thought I'd do a post-mortem of a game I've just lost. A bit unfortunate, as I was getting up to like the 20, more than 2150 potentially if I'd won this game. But unfortunately I lost it and I didn't need to. But I think there's some instructive tactical blunders and ideas which Rybka reveals, so let's have a look at it. I played e4, and I'm starting a new pet system against the Caro-Kann with e5, because statistically I've noticed I'm doing better with this pawn chain with an aggressive pawn on e5. And here I played c4, so I used to think this was really, controversial because, black can get the d5 square, but if there's no pawn on d5, white can get good knights. And in this game I did have a good knight on e4. So as we see, the game proceeded like this, and at the moment, Rybka kind of likes white's position. Well, it liked it better without knight ge2, but just taking here actually. So maybe that's actually the first instructive point to take there, to avoid the controversy of a knight outpost, black having a knight outpost on d5. So maybe, knight f3 or bishop d3, slight advantage to white. But what I played was knight ge2, and apparently black's almost okay. And now I chase this bishop, and this is instructive because I'm weakening the dark squares and keeping control of f5, but black correctly goes for the d5 square, so that's lovely. Almost dead equal now, pardon me, almost dead equal now for black. But on the other hand, I've got a knight square myself on e4. So yeah, I've got this backward pawn on the d5 and a nice blockade square on d5, but balanced by white's ability now to use e4. But as it turns out, also f4, f5 seems a lot more punch to that, as we're about to see in this game. So knight e4, castles, I play f4. And yeah, black's apparently theoretically about equal again, but he plays f5, which gives me a slight advantage. I just take it to keep the lines open and play f5. And now queen d5 is played. And here is the first instructive kind of tactic and resource which Rybka reveals, that there's a possibility of a very annoying pin here. I took on e6, but Rybka actually gives knight c3 as giving white almost, 0.72, as you see, like 0.6. Why has it gone massively up? I ask myself, and the reason is, taking on e6, there's the queen g6 like pin of the knight here, and because white's getting in knight f5, this can be really dangerous, like knight f5 here, so the queen can't take because knight takes and knight takes g6, and then we have this really vicious variation, bishop takes h6. So all these resources I just didn't see, of course. I didn't see this humble knight retreat being such a big deal. So a sort of a retreat, but then to support majorly, advancing in the opponent's territory with queen g6 and knight f5. So that would have been really nice, this kind of continuation, of course. Big advantage to white. Take on h7 and take on e7. But in the game, I took immediately on f6 if we go back. And black took on e6. And again, we're back to a situation where black's got the advantage. As you see, naught minus, or about equal. So I played bishop d2, nice blockade on d5, rook a1. Now black plays queen g4, a controversial move. You see the evaluation shift. Black was doing fine here. We're just like taking on e4 and just simplifying it down. And the isolated queen pawn will be more of a liability the more we get into the endgame. But queen g4 gives me advantage. And I played a decent move apparently, knight f5, just attacking e7. And black took on e4, which is a horrific blunder. Just rook a8, and that would have been relatively okay. Nothing much going on still. Maybe knight eg or knight eg3 or knight to c3. But after this horrific blunder, I'd won the opponent's queen basically, unless he wants to lose the bishop on e7. I thought this was plain sailing, and I suppose it's instructive the way I messed up the position. He did the necessary move to get as much for the queen as possible. And I got a bit overexcited here about rook takes e7 because I wanted to win b7. Instead, Rybka's saying, to be ruthless and mean with rook e5. So, for example, rook f7. There's rook f5 and challenge this f-file, challenge the only gateway that black's got into my position. And as we see later, this gateway led to my demise because I got into a mating net via the f-file. So Rybka's really kind of ruthless in this position to try and say, look, contest the F file, which is good, you know. So in the game, as we see, after this check I took on B7, I had to start being very careful because black has a clear resource now. Rook F1 check. I took on A5 like a greedy pig, and now it's actually dead equal. If black wants, black can go for a draw, as we see from this 0.00. Let's have a quick look at this. And so rook A F5, and now I think I'm forced to go for some very resourceful draw with carry on checking. I assume black can't sort of get out of this easily. As you see from these variations, that's not, if you want to have a look at those variations. But I made things a lot worse now because I let the knight also coordinate with the two rooks. So I took on C6. But here, still big advantage to white, and there's several moves to gain the advantage. The key thing is to stop knight E2 check. I didn't notice a rook and knight mating net until I saw it. I thought, wow, that was, you know, quite elegant what happened, which was queen D5 after check, king H2, and you see the knight is stopping G1 and G3, the king's. So there's almost part of a mating net there. All it needs is a rook to come to H5 and that'll be mate. And so I kind of facilitated that, unfortunately, with bishop C3 here. What I had to do in this position was to chase this knight away with either like queen E4 or queen E5 to get that knight away from that killer square where this mating net is enabled. Because you see that rook F5, you know, this will be end of the king. So I played bishop C3, and after rook F5, it's over. I desperately took on G7, and after check there, I resigned. So that's how to mess up a winning position. But the Rybka analysis here is also interesting from the opening themes, that if I am going to chase this bishop on F5, it gives me the idea, you know, deductively from the evidence that it's presenting, that this pawn thrust isn't so bad if it's followed up with the F-pawn advance. And to look out really for these opportunities for the queen using this diagonal. If F4, F5 is really going to tear open those light squares, that maybe, you know, there's going to be variations where, you know, queen G6 is going to be useful. And here, you know, knight C3 would have got that queen G6 in. So we have a look at that. So that queen G6. So it does add to sort of, you know, positional understanding to do this kind of post-mortem. And so maybe next time I might, you know, play this variation a little bit better if I was going to play in this controversial way, allowing this, you know, clear blockade. But if we go back earlier also, there's the idea that after C4, if black's really not going to take on C4 here, you know, Rybka's also suggesting, you know, CD is a candidate move, but I'm not sure. It's letting black play at the moment. D takes C4, I guess, because there's the lead in development. Bishop C4. It thinks white has the advantage, but this is kind of, I'm not sure if that's controversial or not. Maybe, you know, it's best to avoid black, you know, having the blockade on D5. To play C takes D5 here. Sorry, not C3. Sorry, cancel that. So not knight C3, just, oh sorry, CD5 at the moment, queen D5. So after knight C3, now here C takes D5 becomes the key move. So that's the point. Stop black from using the blockade on D5, so that you know, the main benefit of this aggressive pawn chain is without the downside of the blockade. So I think that's the key thing here. This kind of position might favour white a little, although I'm a bit concerned still with black's use of, you know, the F5 point. I mean, let's have a look at an example. Can black just simply use like the F5 square? Apparently this position is, you know, okay for white. So just as a quick example to see why, like look here, A5. I'm just following this Rybka idea. So here, maybe A6 or even G4, just chasing the knight apparently. It's got the idea of chasing the other knight, sacking the A5 pawn, and knight B5. Maybe, you know, D6 is weak. So this aggressive pawn is actually supporting D6 in this line. But that isn't so clear. It's gone to like 0 there, so it isn't really that convincing. If we go back here, if knight F5, we give it a bit more depth here to think about this. Just castles, knight b6, because this is going to be a major problem, these light squares. If knight b5, okay, so knight b5 is highlighted. So h5, bishop g5. Is there something about the dark squares which might give white an advantage here? Maybe, because here, yeah, white's getting a big advantage with rook c7. So dark square infiltration at the expense of, you know, the light square f5. So if that's the case, you know, this is certainly a playable, you know, variation in future blitz games. If I know that my counterplay is going to be on the dark squares, and shutting out d5 from being, you know, a useful knight outpost, just letting f5 be a useful knight outpost instead. So I hope you see some of the opportunities which I've now seen. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.